So Gallup.com has spoken, and here are the stats about quiet quitting. This is a report published by Gallup.com, which talks about the 2023 workplace environment, and it has some stats on quiet quitting. So I wanted to share these with you. As you can see here, 59% of the people that were surveyed are quietly quitting. Then 18% are loudly quitting, with only 23% of the people thriving at work. And it gives you some explanation here of what those are overall. So let's talk about the people in the middle. Here's one example. You want to apply these numbers relative to your group. If you're a manager, you can say, hey, 23% of the people that I have are thriving, 60% or 59% are quietly quitting, then people here on the other side are loudly quitting. By the way, I'd rather have this all day than this, because this, I know where they stand because they're pushing back and they're telling me. Here, you would get more passive aggressive about it, saying, yes, boss, I get it. Yes, I'm here. But they're in their mind, and what they do behind your back or behind the scenes is that they're already checked out. So it gives you an explanation. Now, what this means is that employees that you're leading, many of them have already checked out. They're going in there, clocking in, clocking out, and you're not getting any engagement whatsoever from them about that, because they may not care about the goals. They may not care about anything that's happening at work. They're there just for a paycheck and not contributing anything at all. Now, there is a population of employees that I definitely look at as far as compliance. They're still engaged, but they just want to be compliant. That's a totally different scenario. Here, you're seeing more passive aggressive. You're seeing not meeting the expectations that you want, not getting involved in problem solving. So those are the fundamental things that I always talk about. Now, I would definitely recommend go to the Gallup.com, download report, and give it a full read, because it definitely applies to all of us here in this space. Now, okay, so the question then becomes, what do we do? Before we get into those details, you have to understand, in another report that Gallup published, which I had on my stand store for a while, was the State of the American Manager, where 9 out of 10 managers did not have the right skill sets to manage. And this is what happens. This is definitely what happens, because if you've got someone that doesn't effectively manage, then you get a lot of this right here, right? You get a lot of it because you don't have the discipline of doing all the items that are required to manage and lead teams. Thus, you get employees that are disengaged in the end. Now that we know that, if you're in a role as a manager, it doesn't mean that you can't learn how to do this. The question then becomes, what are we doing differently, and what are you going to do differently so we can minimize this? This is going to happen. By the way, this is going to happen, right? You can't have any control about the outcome of employees and how they feel and what they're motivated by. But you can contribute to minimizing this at work as much as you can. So the question becomes, what is your ambition? What is it that you want to try to achieve? Knowing these numbers, that you have a good population of people that are quietly quitting, it gives you kind of an explanation of what this is. So I always recommend, right, start with the fundamentals. Start with fundamental items that you can control and you can get employees engaged with. Now, as a new manager or as an existing manager, I always talk about 3 specific things. Understand what your activity list, KPI activities are with reasonable expectations, what your KPIs are, productivity, efficiency, and cost per unit, then your barriers, right? Those fundamental things require managers to engage employees on setting roles and responsibilities, setting their plan correctly. Because if you think about it, if you do those 3 fundamental things, that in itself will help you plan, which employees want to know what their objectives are. They know what their KPIs are, what are they shooting for as far as their goals, KPIs, key performance indicators, and what the barriers are. Hey, what are my problems? What can I help to solve, right? If they track those 3 things, those are fundamental things that you as a manager or as a new manager, an existing manager, can do to begin the process of engaging employees. So again, if you focus on fundamental items, like I just said, to include other things around setting expectations, providing training, providing and establishing roles and responsibility, all these different things that you have to do up front in order to create the path for success for employees. That's what you have to do. So as a manager, the question then becomes again, what are you doing differently tomorrow to begin the process so that employees are not disengaged at work? So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But if you do it correctly, it'll pay dividends. Not only from you as a leader, you being a good leader and a good manager, employees being engaged, your company you create value for your company, and your customers at the very end receive exceptional service. But not only that, at the very bottom here, if you read it, there's an impact. There's an impact for employees not being engaged. Like these two numbers, there's a dollar impact, right? It talks about being $8 trillion in the U.S. economy or economy. It's a huge impact. Let me give you an example. If you get employees here that are not engaged, if you plan, say for example, you set out your plan to be X, say for example 100 units, and they only produce 70% of that, but then again, you don't have a way to hold them accountable, set expectations, or follow up, they're not going to care because no one cares what they're doing. And all you're doing is dropping the hammer when they don't hit the goals. How can they be engaged if you don't train them? The thing is, like I said, if you don't do all the work up front to build that success plan, in order for them to hit that 100 instead of the 70, then you're just dropping the hammer because you're not doing any of that. That creates this. So go to Gallup.com, download the report. Let me know in the comments, what are you going to do differently? And please hit me up if you have any questions.